Live.
We're live.
From Toronto, Canada. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to the Johnny I Pro Show with your host, Johnny Pro.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Johnny I Pro Show. I have here no other than Josh Alexander. Welcome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course, I gotta say now, before I even start, the greatest Canadian modern day wrestling. I'll say it myself, guys. Josh Alexander right here. I gotta say, what inspired you to become a wrestler?
Oh, that's a long answer and a tough question, because I never thought I could be a wrestler. Like when I came up, you gotta think, when I was like 12 to 15, when I really got into wrestling was the Attitude Era. And, like I'm watching like guys like Billy Gunn, and then like it evolved into guys like Randy Orton and Batista, and I'm like, man, I'm 6 foot at best, and I'm not a bodybuilder, you know what I mean? I was a really fat kid in high school, like I was 300 pounds. And so like, it was just something I really enjoyed, and I was like, there's no chance I can ever do this. And I actually watched TNA for the first time on Wednesday night pay-per-view when I was like 15 years old, 2002, I remember the day. And I saw Low-Ki. And like, I say it like I see Low-Ki, and then later on I saw Samoa Joe and I saw AJ Styles and all this stuff. But Low-Ki was really the guy, because he came out the very first match, very first show in a 6-man tag. And I was like, this guy is like 170 pounds, 5 foot something. But he was larger than life the way he presented himself. And I was like, oh man, this is for all shapes and sizes now with this new company and stuff like that. And through that, I found Ring of Honor, and I found even more guys to inspire me. And I went away to university in 2005, and I discovered, first time I ever had anything other than dial-up internet.
So dial-up internet. Good.
I Googled like independent wrestling and stuff like that, and discovered there's a wrestling school an hour from where I went to university in St. Catharines. And I drove up to Hamilton. I no intention of being a wrestler. I just wanted to pay. I paid the guy $50. I was like, I just want to touch the ropes, touch the ring, see what it feels like, and stuff like that. And he made me get in and take a bump. And like, I remember I took the bump, I hit my head, and I was like, oh, geez, that sucked. And he was like, do it again this time, tuck your chin and breathe out. And I did it, and like, it was seamless. And I got up, and like, everybody was like, oh man, I've never seen somebody bump like on the second try perfectly like that. And I was just like, wait, I'm good at this. And it was like this confidence booster thing. And I was like, I want more of that. And from that moment on, it was like November 5th, 2005. I went every single day back to that school. And within like 30 days, the school gave me a key because I was there so often and stuff like that. And it's been an obsession ever since.
Probably the greatest $50 you ever spent.
Yeah, I spent way more than that, but like the initial $50 was the best investment I ever made.
So. I gotta say now, you said Low-Ki, like names like right there. Like, who are your favorites growing up wrestlers?
Well, it started with Bret Hart. Like
of course.
Immediately, like you're a Canadian kid, you're watching wrestling, and like for me, it was like renting tapes from Blockbuster Jumbo Video and stuff like that. And like, so you're seeing stuff through like 94 through 97, which was kind of Bret's big run. And I'm just like, this guy's from Canada, and like Americans don't know this, but Calgary is nowhere near where I grew up, outside the GTA. But like Americans think you're like, oh yeah, you guys are neighbors, right? But like just hearing from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, I'm like, oh man, look at a Canadian, he's on top, he's doing this. And like, it was just so inspiring. And like, I don't think any Canadian's super patriotic in the sense compared to like an American, but it was just, there was something there with Bret that inspired like Canadians and like myself, and he was my favorite. And of course the Attitude Era, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, that was one of my favorites actually, Stone Cold.
Yeah, completely upset. Cause you got to think, I was 10 years old
in
1997 when Austin 316 came out, and he was going for the title at WrestleMania 14, cause that's the first WrestleMania I ever saw.
Yes, that was with Shawn Michaels and Tyson.
But
that was insane. Yeah,
I was so invested in that, and like within like, it all started from a magazine. My mom brought home a wrestling magazine, and it was so random, but she was like, I saw kids looking at this, and I lived in like a podunk town outside the GTA with just farmers fields, nobody to play with, an only child, right? So she brought this home to make me happy, and I just looked through it, and I remember there was a Chains poster in the middle, and I put it on my wall.
Those are epic. You
right
cut them off posters.
Yeah. And like, he was just obsessed, and renting videos and studying tape and doing all that stuff. And
that's how it all started.
Yeah.
I gotta say now we just said Bret Hart. Before we started, I also told you as well, I'm good friends with their family. I talked to their son this week, and he high praised you and said that his father loves your work. So coming from there right there, like that's just the highest of the highs.
I mean, I'll believe you. Yeah. I mean,
hey, October 19th, you're more than welcome. Nothing else going on.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, I got to say now, you were born in Bolton, correct? Born and raised. How was it, Bolton? Like just...
I mean, back then it looked a lot different than it looks now. Like back when I grew up in Bolton, there was no McDonald's. It was like maybe 20,000 people at best. You know what I mean? It was a one street town. And now it's just like, it's grown into being part of the GTA. So it's enormous, but like, it was just small town life, man. Like comparable to any other small town in North America. And it was just simple, you know.
Just simple
you
life.
go out, you ride your bike. I remember my grandpa gave me like a $2 bill. This is how old I am. I think I'm dating myself, but he was like, go get some milk from the store. And it was like 2 kilometers away, you know. I rode my bike to pick up some milk, and like at like 5 or 6 years old, and like I have a 6-year-old. I'm not letting my 6-year-old out of my sight at any given time, but that's small town life, man.
Exactly. Now your attire, you always have that Canadian leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Like how important it is to always showcase where you're from, especially Canada?
Super important. I do it first and foremost because like we've talked about Brett, like I idolized these Canadian wrestlers growing up, and like Canada was such a part of Brett's identity. And like, but from Brett, Owen, and then you talk about guys that aren't even Canadian, but they were trained and came up in Canada. Like I rep Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid too, because they came up in the dungeon. I was trained by a graduate of the dungeon, and that was like super important to me. And I just take a lot of pride in the wrestlers that have come out of Canada, and I want to showcase that and try to like, for me, it's so tough for Canadians to get noticed. In professional wrestling, we have that border that's keeping us from North America, or from America, sorry. And it's just so difficult. So like, I mean, I've said it at Destiny like 6 or 7 years ago when I defeated Pete Dunne for the Destiny Championship. I was like, my sole focus is to get more eyes on the Canadian wrestling scene, because we have some of the most talented wrestlers in the world on the independents here. But for whatever reason, even with the internet, with Triller, with all these iPay-per-views and stuff like that, it doesn't get the same buzz that stuff in the States does. So if I can help highlight Canada and its wrestling scene while I'm doing my thing, like I'm very proud to do so. If it helps somebody out along the way, then I'm even prouder. Exactly.
It's showing right there. And I got to say now, I got to show you this right here. 2023 Pro Wrestling Illustrated at number 9 right here. Like right there. Like what is this is huge. Like what does this mean to you right here when you found out you made the list?
So from a wrestling perspective, like a lot of wrestlers are like, I don't go into star ratings. I don't go into like the numbers for the top 500 and stuff like that. But for like Josh LeMay, my real name, you know, like the kid that grew up, that read those magazines every single month to discover wrestlers. Like I discovered who Kenta Kobashi was when I was like 10 years old, because I had a PWI magazine and I looked at the rankings in the back, and like for Japan, he was like number 1. I'm like, who's this guy? I got to figure out who he is. You know what I mean? So like seeing number 9, knowing that I'm like ranked in the top 10 with like all my peers throughout this business, it's completely unbelievable to me.
It's an accomplishment for sure, hands down. Now, you grew up, obviously, you got trained by Johnny Devine, but you fought him one time during your career, probably multiple times, I believe. Now, how was that, like, just going at it with your trainer?
Well, the first time was absolutely terrifying. So, I mean, like, for me, wrestling kind of came easy. Like, not that it's easy, but, like, I could bump, I could put together the moves, and like I was pretty good at pro wrestling from an independent standpoint. And then this guy at the time, X Division champion, and I got booked on a show, and he's like, he got booked on a show, and he's like, you're coming with me. I'm like, okay. So I come with him, I bring my gear, and then I get there, and my name's beside his on the card.
You're like,
and I'm just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Oh, I hope I don't let him down. Like all this pressure's on me, and I'm like 2 years into my wrestling career at this point, and he comes up to me and he goes, I'll see you out there. And I go, what? He goes, that's it. We're going to see if you can wrestle. I'll see you out there. And like, didn't know anything going into the match, nothing. We went out and wrestled for 15, 20 minutes. We came to the back afterwards. And like, if I watched it now, I'd be like, this is the worst match of all time. But like, in coming back from that 2 years into wrestling, you know, the self-conscious kid that I was, you know, just doing this because he loved it, never thinking it was possible to do anything more. He came back and he was like, you're the best wrestler in Ontario. Like, and whether he meant it or not, it was the confidence boost I needed to keep like pushing and keep going further with this. So it was the scariest thing. Well, second scariest thing I've ever done. You might get the scariest thing during this interview, but and then it was also the most uplifting thing that could ever happen in my career. It's the thing that like just made me really go for this.
Exactly. Now you also fought as well, though, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I believe Kevin Owens went by Kevin Steen and Sami Zayn went by El Generico, whatever. However,
yeah.
Like how, like just to see how they've become right now and stuff. Like how was that just going against them?
I mean, you're talking about a different era and crop of Canadians that have gone on to do amazing things. Like I always talk about the Dungeon era, then I talk about Edge and Christian and those guys, and then right after that, you're talking about El Generico and Kevin Steen. Yeah. And you know, just coming up, I was watching these guys, Travel Independence, do PWG, do Ring of Honor and stuff like that, and idolizing them, being like, man, how are they getting, like, they broke through that, you know, glass ceiling of being a Canadian wrestler to get out there in the global scene and stuff like that. It was just super inspiring, nerve-wracking at the same time, because the same thing, I put all the pressure on myself to be like, I need to be on these guys' level. And I credit El Generico a lot for teaching me the, like, crucial things on how to be a pro wrestler. Like to this day, the lessons that he taught me in the 2 matches I had and the time he took to spend with me after those matches and the advice he gave me, I take to this day and I try to pass on to other people, because we went out and we had a match and he told me the same things in that match that I've been told 100 times by other people. But for some reason that day when he said it, the way he said it, a light bulb went off in my head and it changed the way I wrestled from there on out. And like, I remember after that first match, it was for C4 in Montreal. We came to the back and he had recorded it on his phone. And he watched the whole match back with me on his phone with me side by side. And he's like, see where you are here? You should be over here. You should be moving like this instead of this. And it was just like light bulb after light bulb after light bulb went off in my head. And I was just like, I'm so grateful I got those matches.
Amazing. Wow. That's a good story right there. I got to say now, as well, you also fought Alpha, A1, as they say, Alpha 1. Now, obviously, you've Brody Lee, Ricochet. Like, how was it, especially Brody, rest in peace, like, just how was it first them?
Well, Brody, like when I first started wrestling, Brody was a few years in and he was from Rochester, New York. So he would do a lot of the independents throughout Southern Ontario that I would do. So I met him very early on. I wrestled him a bunch of times before Alpha 1. And just like the care that Brody had for somebody like me who is nobody, who looked like he wasn't going to amount to anything at that time. He just knew I had a passion for this. Like I got booked on shows because I'd show up, Brody was on the show and he'd be like, you have to use this guy to the promoter.
Amazing.
And like, without really knowing me that much, like we'd had dinner before, you know what I mean? We hung out a little bit, but I think he knew that I had a passion for this and that I was like a good-hearted person and stuff like that. And he gravitated to that. And we had a relationship, you know, all the way until his passing. We used to vox each other all the time when he was in WWE. And like, it's just much of the same, man. Like you come up with these guys and like, I remember the day he got signed. We were at an Alpha 1 show. We wrestled in a 3-way match and Kevin Steen was at the show. And he signed a few days prior, but I remember being in the back after the match and he looked at Kevin, he was like, I'm going. And Kevin just grabbed him and gave him like this, like the kind of like hug, like if I didn't see my son for like 3 months and I'm gonna grab him and hug him, he was like, oh my God, I'm so happy for him. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I witnessed it was right in front of me and it was just like, and I was like, man, the sky's the limit now for this guy. And he went off and he did amazing things. And like, unfortunately we lost Brody. And like to this day, you miss the guy because his energy was just electric, man.
And it shows the impact.
Yeah,
exactly. I gotta say now, you fought obviously ECW legends, Raven, Steve Corino as well. Like, how was that? Just like knowing that you're going up against ECW legends.
It's all the same pressure that like I'm talking about with Kevin Steen and El Generico. All these guys I'm idolizing. I'm putting them on this pedestal, and so like getting to wrestle them. I've never had, like, you've heard the saying many times, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
And I've never had that experience with any of these guys I idolize. Like I stepped foot in the ring with Steve Corino in a show in Toronto called Union Professional Wrestling. And I think there was like maybe 150 people in this Legion Hall. And you would have thought we were wrestling in front of thousands of people with the effort he put into it and the advice he gave me and all this other stuff. Like he wrestled his ass off. And that's like something that inspired me to be the guy I am now, who like every time I go out there, whether like I've said it, whether it's in front of 550, 500 or 5,000 people, you're going to get the same Josh Alexander every time and make sure everybody gets their money's worth, because it's not their fault if like the house isn't popping and full with people, you know what I mean? So you just got to give them everything you got every single time. And I took that away from like when I wrestled guys like Raven, who, you know, had done everything in the business, but he's showing up and he's going to give his best to make sure the crowd, you know, sees the best Raven they can, or even Steve Corino.
Yeah, I got to say now, I got to show you this right here, which is one of my favorite matches you're in right here. Got a little hardcore.
Yeah.
Right there against Bully Ray right here. Full Metal Mayhem right here. Let's talk about this match right there, like, and the whole feud leading up to this match, even involved as well, like your family, all that. So let's talk about this match right here.
One of my favorite matches and one of the most crucial things in my career was wrestling Bully Ray and having a feud with him. And he's going to hate that I'm talking about this out loud because like, you know, old school guys, especially guys like Bully Ray, like they want to blur the lines and be like, we detest each other to this day, you know what I mean, from the art we had in the ring and stuff like that. But like it was just like I was going to school when I wrestled Bully Ray, when I had that whole feud with him. And I'm not saying like in ring, I was completely confident that I'm one of the best in the world. Like from bell to bell, Josh Alexander, I know I can go out there and put on a show with anybody at any time. But how to build a match and a program to make it sell so that match means as much as possible, and just the way that you sell it with your words, with your eyes, with the way that you convey your body language and stuff like that. That's stuff that, you know, Bully Ray taught me that I use to this day and I'm gonna use for the rest of my career, and I'm gonna try to pass on to other people. Like he's so knowledgeable and he's so giving, and like forever grateful for Bully Ray.
Exactly. Like that feud was just incredible.
And that match was a great opportunity for me to show a different side of me, because up until that point, the greater wrestling world knows me from Impact Wrestling and TNA. And I'm the guy that goes out there bell to bell and has a wrestling match. Like,
yes.
TNA management at the time, like when they're making matches, I'm like, I've never done a gimmick match. And they're like, you don't need one.
Yeah.
You go out there, you have good matches without any stipulations. And I'm just like, well, yeah, I get it. But like, it kind of sucks for me because like, I want to be able to tell these other stories where we need this stuff. You know what I mean? And that was a perfect opportunity opportunity for me to show that like I can get my hands dirty. I can take things to a different level. I do have another gear and stuff like that. And like I said, one of the fondest memories of my entire career, like if there's a top 10 for Josh Alexander wrestling matches, that's in it for sure.
For sure. Now I gotta say now, TNA original, before you like started, you also mentioned his name, Samoa Joe. Mm-hmm. Like how was that getting in the ring with him?
That was third scariest moment of my career because like I had put Joe on this pedestal because like I idolized all the stuff he did in Ring of Honor. I idolized all the stuff he'd done in TNA, and he was just this larger than life character. It would be like if like 10-year-old me got in the ring with Steve Austin. Like you're talking like in the infancy of my wrestling career coming up, Samoa Joe was the guy on the independents and throughout TNA and Ring of Honor. And that's the stuff I really idolized once I started putting this into practice. So when I got booked against him, it was for AEW in Chicago, and I remember they were like, we want to push you, we're confident in you, all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this company's taking a chance on me. This company's in America. This company has a lot of viewership and stuff like that. It's a springboard for my career. So I have all this pressure on me, and then I got to step in the ring with somebody I've idolized so much. And like I said, much of the same, man. It was such a great experience. Like he took his time with me. He taught me all these things, and like I was one of two people. Me and Jay Briscoe were the only people that pinned Samoa Joe throughout his time between TNA and WWE in like that 6 or 8 month span. And I'm just like, for him to do that for me, like that's like, we all know wrestling's predetermined. We talk about this stuff, but like he didn't have to do that.
Exactly.
You know, he could have been like, no, I'm not putting this guy over. You know what I mean? Like whatever. Like he did it. He did it the right way. And it's something that, you know, now that I'm in this position I'm in where I'm longest reigning TNA champion and people look at me kind of in the similar light, like I can pass that on other people and put people over. Like I put over Gabriel Fuerza at Northern Crown in Toronto recently. You know what I mean?
A couple weeks ago, I believe.
And that was like the first pinfall I've taken in Ontario in like 8 years or something like that. So I didn't know that until somebody told me, but like that's the kind of thing that Samoa Joe did for me. You know what I mean?
It's just the good-hearted person. Like, it just, like, you have to have character to really do that. Because a lot of people have ego and stuff, but for you to do that, it's, like, just amazing. And I got to say now, Cody Rhodes, then I believe it was at the A1 as well, you shared the ring with him. Just, like, the star that he's become right now and the experience, like, that you had in the ring with him, like, how was that?
It's unbelievable to see how much of a star he's become, but like at the same time not unbelievable whatsoever, because he showed up to those Alpha One shows in a suit, like the same Cody Rhodes you get, and he went out there and he put on the best show he possibly could for that packed house of like what 400-500 people max for an independent show. He did a meet and greet. I don't think he even, like, when they went to pay him, I think he refused to get paid. Like, it was just like, he's just so giving, and like just awesome experience overall. Great wrestler, great guy. Like, you meet that guy, and for the first few times I met him, I'm just like, this has to be pretend, man. Like, he's too nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this has to be like a facade to be like, you know, I'm the nicest guy in wrestling, and all of a sudden like, he's gonna screw you somehow. But like, it's completely genuine. I brought my son to SmackDown and to Money in the Bank. Now with the working relationship between TNA and WWE, I'm like, I can go. You know, if everybody else is going, I'm going. You know what I mean? I can take my son to a show because he's obsessed with wrestling. So I take him. And Trinity, you know, we text her and we're like, we're here. You know, have a good match. She's like, come to the back. I'm
amazing.
Like, okay. So like. This is a funny story. I'll share this one with you. We get grabbed by security from like whatever. We're like in one of the floor seats because we got free tickets from a friend of mine. And we're walking to the back with security and we're like, pull back the curtain. And I bought him the World Heavyweight Championship replica. They were amazing. And he's like, Daddy, hold this. And he like puts it in my hand. And I'm like, no, take this back. I'm not walking in the back holding this pretend belt, dude. And he's like not taking it. So I have to like wrap it around and be like, I'm not like walking in the back holding this replica title. But I walk to the back. I'm standing like right by Gorilla, and you know, waiting for Trinity to come back. She had a post-show match, like dark for the house, And I'm waiting for her to come back so we can say what's up to her. And Cody runs up to me right away, gives me a big hug. He's like, Josh, like it was like he saw me yesterday. And I'm like, I've seen him twice at Alpha One. I've worked with him twice. Like obviously we all are familiar with each other through, you know, social media and all this other stuff, but we haven't really spoke. And he's like, you want to come tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like we had no intention. And I looked down at my son, Jet, and Jet looks at me, he goes, we're going to Money in the Bank? And I'm like, he's like, text me if you want tickets. And he walks away. And I'm like, I only had his number from like 2016. And I got back to the hotel and I texted him like, still that offer good? And he's just like, yeah, absolutely. Like, amazing. You know what I mean? Same number from 2016. And like, he got us like 4th row tickets to Money in the Bank. And my son had the time of his life because of, you know, the generosity of Cody Rhodes.
I love it. That's an amazing story. Now you said right there the NXT now teaming up with TNA. Mm-hmm. How's that like all about? Like, are you like excited for this? Like, is this a new chapter, like just in general for like all of wrestling, like combining together?
Oh, like first and foremost, I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Like so many wrestlers out there want to pretend they're not fans and stuff.
We're
like,
all fans, exactly.
Especially wrestlers.
Yeah.
You're not going to put yourself through the punishment of being a wrestler if you're not a fan of it. So why pretend that you're not? And for fans, I think this working relationship, these dream match scenarios and stuff like that, much the same with AEW and TNA when they had a working relationship, or New Japan and AEW, WWE and TNA working together, it just gives this infinite amount of possibilities for fans to speculate and talk about what dream matches might happen. Like I'm tagged so much, like Chad Gable, Oba Femi, like Charlie Dempsey. I get like, you're talking like 10,000 tweets over the past 2 months.
Matches,
People like, Josh is going to come out and challenge Oba Femi. Now Joe Hendry's over there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like my social media is flooded with, Josh is going to come out and screw over Joe Hendry because, you know, the North and Ethan Page is the champion, stuff like that. I just think it makes things so much more unpredictable, and which makes wrestling way more exciting. And that's just good business for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I gotta show you this right here. Ethan Page,
Yep.
308 days, longest reigning tag team champions right here.
Uh-huh.
And now you said just NXT champion. Like,
Yep.
how's that? Like, what does this mean to you? Like, seeing this picture as like success right behind this right here.
Yeah, that I'm everything I'm going to answer is unbelievable.
Exactly.
Like that's the first thing, because like I said, never had an intention of being a wrestler, and then, you know, I broke my neck in 2014 and I thought I had to retire, and then I came back and I was banned from the United States. So I'm like, I'm never getting that contract that I was chasing for so long. And I'm just like, this makes me happy. So I'll wrestle in Ontario, do the best I can do, and try to get some eyes on, you know, Canadian wrestling. And I was just doing it because it made me happy. And then this contract came along, and I show up and they're like, you're tagging with Ethan Page. I'm like, sweet, we've tagged before. We have great chemistry. This is awesome. He's one of my best friends, has been for a decade. We show up and within like 2 months, we're tag team champions, and we hold them for nearly a year. You know what I mean? And just this historic run and this chemistry that we had to go out there and put on these tag matches, unlike people had seen in TNA for a very long time. It's something I hold very near and dear to my heart. It's something I'm very proud of. And I'm glad I got to share it with Ethan Page, because like for both of us, like when I showed up, he was kind of like floundering around and hopping around TNA, and he never really, you know, had set his footing and what he established himself. And then we got put together and it was just like we were off to the races.
Magic.
Yeah.
I get to say now as well, like you say, like setbacks. So obviously you broke your neck and it's a setback. How did you stay motivated? Like what was your motivation just to like say, I'm gonna break back into ring as soon as I get better?
So I broke my neck the first time in 2013. And at the time we were Monster Mafia as a tag team. We were wrestling in Ring of Honor. And there was talk of us getting a contract. So we were like, I remember we did this show in Detroit, and you know, maybe because Rick Steiner's from Detroit, whatever, I came out in the headgear. We wrestled Red Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish, and we stole the show.
Yeah.
Like there was like 15 matches on that card. People were chanting, we want headgear, all the way until the end of the show. I remember Kevin Steen had his farewell Ring of Honor match that night, and they were chanting, we want headgear in his match. And I'm in the back like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't hate me. Like, I feel so bad, you know what I mean? But like, for whatever reason, the crowd just gravitated to me that night. I was just like, and in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty over here. Like, they gotta recognize this and maybe give us this contract they've been talking about forever. I broke my neck that night. And I did not know I broke my neck for about 8 weeks, because in Canada, free healthcare, great stuff. You gotta wait for it. So I don't get an MRI for 8 weeks walking around with a broken neck, right? Still wrestling, but like my arm is in pain and I've atrophied. I'm just like, there's something wrong, but like, I don't know. And I did a few more Ring of Honor shots. I did other independent bookings and stuff like that with a broken neck. And then, you know, you get the MRI results, like, we're rushing you in for surgery. I get the neck surgery, and they're like, you need like 6 to 9 months off. And I'm just like, well, I got 8 weeks until my next Ring of Honor booking. I'll just see what happens.
No way.
Well, you got to think, like, I'm in a tag team.
Yeah.
So if I stop wrestling, all the work that we've done collectively, Ethan Page has to start from square one.
Yes.
So I'm like, if I come back and we kind of baby it, we move around without using my neck, because like obviously we can work around things if we need to without really telling people, maybe we can keep this run going and sustain it so that we get that contract, because he's chasing the same thing I am, right? So I came back, we end up going to PWG, everything seems like it's fine. 6 months later, re-injure my neck. And I go back for surgery and they be like, you can't wrestle anymore. So I have the surgery, I wake up, there's no neck collar. This time for the surgery, it's different than the first time. Like, what's going on? I remember I waited in the hospital bed for like 24 hours or something till the doctor came in and talked to me. He came in, he was just like, hey, yeah, we went in and like, we read on the MRI, we thought it was much more serious than it was. It was just like cleaning up from the first surgery because there was like bone spurs or whatever in my spinal column. He's just like, you can wrestle, but take 9 months off and do the rehab this time. So I had already retired.
Ooh, okay.
I'd already had my send off before that surgery and stuff like that, thinking this was the end of it. And I wanted to be okay without wrestling. I wanted to know what life was like without wrestling. I was a new father to my son Lucas and stuff like that. And by the time, I start working out and doing things, like I started working out after like 4 weeks because I was just spinning my wheels.
You got the itch.
I had no intention of coming back to wrestling. And then when I felt 100%, probably 6 to 9 months later, I was absolutely miserable, and for the first time in my life, really depressed. And I never told anybody that my neck was okay after that surgery. And I finally, one night, I was out with the boys, and I was just like, yeah, my neck's actually not that bad. They told me I could wrestle. I just had to do the rehab. But like with the retirement thing, I really don't want to. I didn't want to betray the trust of the fans. You know what I mean? I didn't want to do like the guy retires and comes back and retires and comes back. Like I didn't want them to think I was taking advantage of them with the retirement thing. But yeah, I said it. And I remember Ethan turned to me, he goes, so you're coming back? I got an Alpha One show in like 6 weeks. We'll do it there. And I'm just like, no, I can't, because like the fans might like hate me for this. He's just like, no, you're absolutely miserable. You were born to do this.
Exactly.
You're coming back. And like, if he didn't give me that push, and I started dating my wife Jade at the time, and I told her, and she said the same thing. She was like, you're meant to do this. And they just shoved me into it, and I came back, and like, thankfully the fans received it well, and and I'm glad I did, because all this stuff that's happening now, like I said, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable because of that. It's all happening. It's like a new lease on life, a second chance at pro wrestling, man.
You're destined for sure. I got to say now, your 60-minute Iron match versus TJ Perkins, that's 60 minutes. I remember when Brett talked about that Shawn Michaels match, that wasn't a slouch. Like, obviously your cardio must be, obviously it shows like has to be top tier for 60 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Like, how was that, going in the ring for 60 minutes?
Well, it was actually like 67 minutes because we did overtime. But yeah, my cardio has always been really good because, like I said, I was a 300-pound kid in high school, and I dropped down to probably, by the time I wrestled TJP, it was probably 215, 220.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it was like I'm just like unloading rocks out of my backpack as I'm losing weight, and all of a sudden I feel light as a feather. I've always had this gas tank for pro wrestling, like unlike a lot of people. Like, I've wrestled NFL players, I've wrestled MMA fighters, and like by the time we're done our match, they're laying down wheezing, ready to throw up, and I'm just like, you all right, dude? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just like, I was just getting warmed up out there, you know what I mean? Luckily I have this gas tank that can keep going. But like the match with TJP, that is like the springboard for my career. It was during COVID, no fans in the crowd, no adrenaline rush from any live audience. And they were just like, we're thinking about doing an Ironman match. Would you be interested? I'm like, absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's go.
100%. I didn't know who it was against when they mentioned it. And they're like, really? You'd like to do that with no crowd? I'm just like, yes. Because like, you're handing me this opportunity on a silver platter of 60 plus minutes of television time to show that I can do something that not many people in wrestling can pull off. And we went out there, and I can't put TJP over enough. He's, if not the best wrestler I've ever been in the ring with. Wow. He's right up there, neck and neck with anybody. And we made magic that night, and that's the thing that I came back from that, and I've heard this from other people. When I came back after that match, everybody went, Josh is the guy. Josh is the guy that's going to be our world champion. And because they had other plans. And then that happened, and that's what changed their mind. And like I said, this opportunity on a silver platter, if I said no,
and what happened? Yeah,
life might be different, right?
Amazing. Now I got to say this right here. 2021, you defeated Christian Cage right there. Mm-hmm. World champion. What does it mean to you right here, this photo?
Unbelievable is the word of the day. The fact that I got to wrestle for the TNA World Championship in the main event of Bound for Glory, completely something I never thought possible. I'll always have belief in myself. Like when I first went singles, when Ethan left TNA for AEW, I was kind of the odd man out. They were like, we don't know what we're going to do with Josh. We don't know what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one of the writers came to me and he was like, what would you do if you were us? And I was just like, just give me time to wrestle. Give me 15 to 20 minutes. Give me X Division guys. I don't care. And I'll be your world champion in no time. And he goes, really? That's kind of egotistical. I was like, it's not an ego thing. Like, I've done this on the indies so many times. I'll show up at name an indie. I show up for my first booking. Within 3 months, I'm usually their champion because like just what I do from bell to bell, it's well received by the crowd. You see there's momentum behind it. And I always kind of climb the ladder pretty fast because I had tons of experience by the time I showed up in Impact Wrestling. I was 14 years into my wrestling career when I signed that contract, and I'm wrestling with people that are 3 to 5 years into the business that are fighting for that spot. I'm just like, I had the experience edge over these guys, and luckily I'm in my prime right now. So just to be able to capitalize on that and then share the ring, like I said, main event of Bound for Glory against somebody like Christian who grew up 20 minutes from where I did, like Bolton to Orangeville, man, like that's neck and neck. Like when I first heard about Christian, when I watched Royal Rumble in that tables match, and like I heard he was from Orangeville, I'm like, man, that's like 20 minutes away. This is really possible, you know.
Exactly.
Like the Brett thing's cool because he's from Canada, but this guy's from Orangeville, right there, him and Edge, and I'm just like, this is even more possible now, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a great experience.
Love it. Now I gotta show you this right here. Match of the year. When you guys get together, Will Ospreay right here.
Yeah.
Like this promo just speaks for itself right here. Like how does it get in the ring with him? Perhaps like one of the best as well.
Like I just put over TJP, Will Ospreay. He's the most skilled wrestler I've ever been in the ring with. It doesn't matter if it's brawling, technical style, high flying. That guy can do it all, and he's charismatic as all hell. And I'm super jealous because like it just like I'm not gonna say it comes easy to anybody because I know he's worked really hard at this, but like he's just in a level. Like he's on a different plane of existence, I think, in pro wrestling. And you know, we got in the ring. The first one, the night after Bound for Glory for our first match, but then that specific graphic is for match 2. That's the main event of the first ever TNA episode of Impact Wrestling. So we knew we had to go out there, both TNA kids. He was inspired by AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. He said it many times from the Unbreakable pay-per-view, the former highest rated match in TNA history, and we eclipsed it that night. That was rated 5.5 stars by Meltzer, and like I said, match ratings, you can think whatever you want on. That's in the history books forever, and that's
broke the scales.
I'm super proud of. Yeah.
And after the match as well, Scott's promo.
Yeah.
Like what did that mean for you right there?
So okay, little behind the scenes. That happened because we actually had 2 to 3 minutes of extra time in our match, and we ended up going home early.
Okay.
You know, and like it happened, and I was like, okay, it's okay. I'll grab the microphone. We'll do something. And all of a sudden, Scott's music comes out, completely unplanned. What happened was he's in the back watching this. He goes, we have 3 minutes of airtime. We need to fill. Blah, blah. What do we do? And like he's not saying this. Other people are saying this. And like I guess like I can't remember if it was Lance Storm, who's my agent usually always, or Tommy Dreamer turns to him and he's like, you got to go out there and cut a promo. And he's like, you know, and he just came out. And like, so everything Scott said was off the cuff. It was like nothing was like thought about beforehand. That is just his passion for TNA, for pro wrestling in general. And to watch it firsthand, like I got goosebumps in the ring that night. I get goosebumps now talking about it because like that's like the passion thing. After 30 years in wrestling, he's seen and done everything there is to do. To still have that passion, that's something that I can't put over enough.
Exactly.
And like that just embodies what Scott D'Amore is to me. As a boss, as, you know, a friend now, as a coach, you know, somebody who's helped me and like guided me through and made me into the Josh Alexander I am now, who's, you know, number 9 in the PWI.
Exactly.
Like, that wouldn't have happened without Scott. Exactly.
Great human overall.
Yeah.
Exactly. I got to say now as well. Now, Ethan Page, current NXT champion. Now, how happy you were just to see him like blossom into this thing that he's doing right now at NXT?
Super happy because I always knew it was possible. You know what I mean? Like we tagged up as Monster Mafia, but we were both single stars at different major independent promotions. We were both champions at AIW, you know, AAW, stuff like that. We were kind of neck and neck, but 2 completely different wrestlers. And I think that's why when we came together as a tag team, we complemented each other so well. But like, I always knew it was possible. It's just in wrestling, it's like, when are you going to get your shot? That opportunity might never come. You just got to be ready when it comes. And, you know, AEW, it obviously didn't work out the way he wanted it to, but like he shows up at NXT and boom, within like what? 6 weeks, 8 weeks, he's NXT champion, and it's amazing to see, man. I like seeing good things happen to good people.
And he wins it in Toronto as well, which was like, it was cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was cool to see. I gotta say now, your recent turn to heel on Joe Henry there as well. Do you like, what do you prefer? Do you like the heel, or like, I wouldn't say you're a babyface. You're just more like, you're just the wrestler. You're the guy. Like, do you like playing the whole?
I didn't enjoy being a babyface at first. It was very difficult because when you're a babyface, you have to watch what you say. You have to like kind of censor yourself as you're trying to talk. Like if I'm cutting a promo, I can't just run this guy down and like say whatever I want, because if I say something, it might trigger fans to be like, oh, that was kind of mean. You know what I mean? Like it's just a weird presentation of yourself. So it was very difficult. But then by the time like the 3 years rolled around into like, you know, say Hard to Kill or that episode where I wrestled Will Ospreay, I was anointed the heart and soul of TNA. I'm the standard of TNA. Yes. I'm the guy that can kind of come out there and cut a promo on any heel, and all the fans are going to get behind me. And like I was very comfortable. I knew who I was, but it took time to get there. So I just as I like was like for that last year I was a babyface, I'm super comfortable now.
Yes.
And then I was presented with this option, you know, to turn heel at Slammiversary and stuff like that, and I was just like, we'll see what happens. Let's see how it goes. And it happened. And I remember I cut my first promo at TV's, and it was just so natural. Like the best work I've done on a microphone is happening right now because I'm not censoring myself anymore. Yes. And there's legitimacy to what I say. Like I'm not telling lies. I'm telling a version of my truth. So I'm presenting myself as the heart and soul of TNA. I'm the one that's carried this company on my back through my hard work, my blood, sweat, and tears and stuff like that. So it adds legitimacy to it, which I think amplifies the whole character, which helps, you know, whatever feud I might be in, gauges interest a little bit more and stuff like that. I'm really excited for the future because I think some of my best work's happening right now.
Exactly. Now I got to say now, one of your closest friends, as we said, Ethan Page, champion. Now, and TNA, WWE getting together, NXT, sorry, can we see perhaps, will you be down for this if somehow Ethan Page versus Josh Alexander?
Oh, absolutely.
Come on, tear the house down.
I mean, like I said, heart and soul of TNA, the standard of TNA. I'm going to rep TNA all day long. If they want to, you know, do a Worlds Collide TNA versus WWE, I don't think there's a better match to be made than me going in there and, you know, kicking his ass and taking that NXT championship.
A lot of history. Get to know Canadian wrestling. Give me your top 3 or even 5 top Canadian wrestlers of all time. Fans love to hear this.
Well, Brett's number 1.
For sure.
That was super easy. And like, wrestling's subjective, everybody. Please don't get mad at me if I leave it one of your favorites. This happens on Twitter all the time. People are going to get mad. Brett Owen, right away, because like when I'm a kid growing up, and like honestly, it's justified. They're super skilled. You know what I mean? Brett Owen, Christian, El Generico, Sami Zayn, and I mean, you can't deny Chris Jericho, I guess,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
The list goes on for sure. I got to say now, what does wrestling mean to you? If you could sum it up.
It's tough to sum it up, man. Wrestling taught me how to be, like, it made me a man. It made me want to grow up. When I was 18 and I started this, I had no idea how to, you know, conduct myself in real life and take care of myself. I was fresh out of my house, living on my own in university and stuff like that. And because of pro wrestling, it inspired me to do all the things I needed to do to be the man I am today that can take care of my family and do this stuff, have this work ethic. And just to show my kids, like the most important thing about wrestling is to show my kids that just do what makes you happy. All I've ever done is follow my heart with pro wrestling. This makes me happy, so I'm going to continue to do it. And it feels right. It's not like when I first started up until like year 14, when I got signed, people would be like, when are you going to stop this? You know what I mean? Or like I had a fiance at a time and she was just like, when we get married, you're going to stop wrestling. You're going to slow this down, right? Because we're going to have kids. And I'm just like, And all of a sudden I don't have a fiance because, you know, like wrestling made me happier than she did. You know what I mean? But like, that's why I'm very, very lucky that I met my wife and she's been in the business longer than me. And she understands that passion and love and like gratification you get from doing this at the level that I'm at. And like, just sum it up, it means everything to me, man.
Exactly. Couldn't have said better. Now, if there could be a dream match, past and present, people love to hear this. What would it be for you, somebody in the past?
I know Twitter wants Kurt Angle versus Josh Alexander, and I would not be mad at that. Yes, trust me. But for me, it'd be Brett.
Yes.
One-on-one. I think he is the standard of pro wrestling.
And how about present? Ethan, why not? Let's go at it.
No.
I'm trying to
there's one that's avoided me for a long time. It was booked on a few independent shows, and for whatever reason, it always fell through. But I think Gunther's probably the standard bearer in WWE, and I would love to tie up with him. So.
And I got to say now, This photo right here.
Yep.
How important is legacy to you? Right there in family, right here.
I have that, and then when I won the World Championship at Rebellion, my youngest son came out with me. That's my oldest son, Lucas. Just to be able to share these moments with my kids and my wife as well, like that's something like when my career is said and done, and I'm like on my deathbed, I can look at a photo like that and be like, I got to share my passion with my family along the way, and like I get to be my kid's superhero, like. I couldn't imagine having a dad that's wrestling on TV. Like my kids have grown up in rings. I had to pay $50 when I was 18 to even touch a rope. You know what I mean? Yes. Like this, I just hope that one day my kids can recognize like that all the hard work meant something, and like that they had kind of a cool, you know, upbringing, because my kids, they've flown all over North America with me. They've stayed in hotels and been at all these shows and met some amazing people. Like I said, Jet, he's got photos with Cody Rhodes and all these different people. He got to talk to Triple H. You know what I mean? Like that stuff, like I hope that they remember this stuff, but like just to be able to share with my family, it's, you can't put a price on it.
Can't top that.
Yeah.
I can say now, to wrap this up right now, when it's all set and done, what do you want the fans to remember Josh Alexander as?
I mean, right now, my singular goal is that when people think of TNA, they think of Josh Alexander in the same light that when they think of TNA, they think of AJ Styles. That's been my goal for like the last few years. And, you know, I'm not going to say I'm close because I put AJ Styles on this incredible pedestal, but I think I've definitely put in the work to, you know, at least be in consideration for that. But when I'm all said and done, I read this, I had like a little Nokia phone when the infancy of cell phones in like 2007, and Lance Storm had blogs on his website. So like when I was at work trying to procrastinate, I would read blogs. This is before social media, everybody. But in one of his blogs, he was just like, I just wanted the respect of my peers to be acknowledged, that, you know, the work that I put in the ring was, you know, at a level that is respectable, that is remembered and stuff like that. And I really took away from that. And I've kind of put it in my mind that like that's something that would mean a lot to me. Like the fans can love and hate me however they want. They can remember me however they want. Hopefully it's fondly. But if I have the respect of my peers, the people that truly know the work that goes into doing this at a high level, that's something you can't, like, nothing will top that either. So.
Exactly. Now I got to say, as I said at the starting, one of the best, actually the best Canadian wrestlers modern day right here, Josh Alexander, everybody. One more can I say? Thank you so much.
Thanks,
it's
buddy.
a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
We're out.